In the fading heat of a dusty Texas afternoon, Ethan Cooper wiped sweat from his brow as he leaned over the cracked hood of an old Chevy pickup. His grease-stained fingers moved with instinct, guided more by feeling than sight. At 29, Ethan was known in town not for his smile nor his silence, but for his hands. He could make broken engines breathe again. Local farmers, racers, and wanderers rolled into his garage like pilgrims seeking miracles only he could deliver. The town didn't have much, just a diner, a closed-down movie house, and Ethan's shop. But what Ethan had couldn't be bought. Just as he tightened the last bolt, he heard the clink of metal against pavement. A man was pushing a car. Ethan turned. A sleek, low-slung sports car shimmered like a mirage. Except the engine sounded like a dying animal. The man behind it looked worse off: ragged jeans, dust-caked boots, a faded cap pulled low. He limped slightly, dragging a duffel bag behind him. He said nothing at first, just nodded. Ethan nodded back, not asking questions yet. The man finally muttered, "No one could fix it, but someone said you might." Ethan raised the hood and let out a low whistle. The engine wasn't just damaged. It was mutilated, piston rods cracked, valves scorched, wiring torched. It wasn't a commercial engine. This thing was one of a kind, custom, high-end, probably experimental. Ethan stared for a long moment, rubbing his jaw. "This isn't regular work," he said finally. The man shrugged. "Ain't asking for regular, just asking if you'll try." Ethan met the stranger's eyes. Tired, hazel, with a flicker of desperation. He nodded once and gestured to the bay. The man limped the car in himself, no words of gratitude, just silence. Ethan began stripping the engine down that night. He didn't turn on music, the clang of tools, the buzz of the overhead light, the soft groan of the floorboards. Under his boots, this was his rhythm. As his hands moved over the unfamiliar engine, he sensed genius in its design and madness. Whoever built this had vision, but no patience. It was overpowered, overclocked, and dangerously ambitious. By morning, his hands were blistered. By the next night, his knuckles were bleeding. And still, the stranger said nothing. He slept in the corner on an old cot, watching Ethan like a ghost. On the third night, the storm came. Thunder cracked, rain slammed the tin roof, but Ethan worked on. The rain washed the grease from his arms, but not his resolve. Every nut he turned was a small rebellion against impossibility. He didn't ask for payment. He didn't ask for the man's name. It wasn't about any of that. He was possessed by the challenge. The impossible engine became a puzzle, and with every piece he cleaned, filed, or fabricated from scratch, it began to make sense. By dawn, it was reassembled, Frankenstein together from will, sweat, and genius. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and stood in front of the car, suddenly unsure. He looked at the man sleeping in the cot, then reached over and twisted the key. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the engine coughed, growled, and finally, with a roar so clean and pure, it felt like a declaration of war. It came alive. Ethan staggered back, the cot creaked. His client sat up, his eyes wide. Slowly he stood and walked to the engine. And then, to Ethan's surprise, the man began to clap, slowly, deliberately, each clap echoing through the rain-drenched silence. With one hand, the man pulled off his cap. With the other, he peeled away a fake beard. His posture straightened, the limp disappeared, and standing in front of Ethan now was Logan Hartwell, billionaire, automotive mogul, and CEO of Hartwell Motors. Ethan blinked. The name alone had weight. Hartwell was the mind behind some of the world's most cutting-edge engines, but also a man known for eccentric decisions and sudden disappearances. "I had to know if the legend was true," Logan said softly, "about a mechanic in the middle of nowhere who fixed the things everyone else gave up on." Before Ethan could speak, the sound of tires crunching gravel flooded the air. Two vans rolled up, sleek, unmarked, and suspiciously quiet. Doors swung open. Camera crews stepped out, followed by sharply dressed PR assistants. A boom mic rose into frame. Ethan stepped back, overwhelmed. "What is this?" he asked, voice low. Logan smiled faintly. "Documentation, proof. You didn't just fix an engine. You solved a problem a billion-dollar team failed to crack, and you did it alone, with basic tools and nothing but instinct. You didn't just fix this engine, Ethan. You may have just saved my company's future." Ethan stood frozen, oily hands limp by his side. The camera crews began circling the vehicle, marveling at the flawless hum of the engine. One journalist whispered, "Is this the unreleased Series Z prototype?" Logan didn't answer. Instead, he turned back to Ethan and said, "Tell me something. Why didn't you ask who I was? Why didn't you ask what this was worth?" Ethan shrugged, still stunned. "Didn't matter. Engine was broken. I fix broken things." Logan grinned. "Exactly why you're the only one who could have done it." He turned to the cameras. "Meet the most brilliant mechanic in America." Ethan shifted uncomfortably as microphones were pushed toward him. "Mr. Cooper, how does it feel to revive a multi-million-dollar prototype? Do you plan to work with Hartwell Motors? What do you want in return?" Ethan raised his hands, blinking against the lights. "I didn't do this for headlines. I just fixed an engine." That line hit harder than he expected. Logan nodded at his PR team to stand down. "He speaks when he's ready," Logan said. Then he looked back at Ethan, that sly grin never leaving his face. "But I think the world is going to be listening." Logan waved over his assistant, a young woman named Claire, who approached with a leather binder. "This," she said softly to Ethan, "is a proposal. We'd like to bring you on as a consultant." Ethan opened it and saw a number so large he exhaled sharply. "I'm not an engineer," he muttered. "I barely graduated high school." Claire smiled. "That's not what your hands say." Ethan looked back at the engine, still humming with life. He didn't need the money. He didn't crave the spotlight. But the challenge, that he couldn't turn away from, and deep down he already knew his answer. He didn't sign that night. Instead, he asked Logan a single question. "Why me?" Logan paused. "Because every genius I hired told me it couldn't be done. They had degrees, labs, software, but no heart. You listen to the machine. That's what makes you rare." Ethan nodded slowly. "I need a day to think," Logan agreed. "Take two." They shook hands, grease on one side, designer cufflinks on the other. As the crew packed up and the storm gave way to sun, Ethan stood alone beside the engine that had changed his life, unsure if it had fixed more than just itself. The next morning, Ethan opened his garage and found a sleek black car parked outside, shining unblemished, unmistakable. A note sat on the hood in Logan's handwriting. "When you're ready, come drive this to Detroit." Ethan chuckled. For the first time in years, he didn't feel stuck in the dirt. He felt like something had shifted, purpose had knocked, and he'd answered. As he looked around his dusty garage, the silence felt different, not empty, just waiting for what came next. Reporters bombarded Ethan with a flood of questions, their voices overlapping in a chaotic blur. Microphones were shoved in his face, flashes of cameras nearly blinding him. But Logan Hartwell raised his hand, silencing them all with quiet authority. "Let him speak when he's ready," the billionaire said firmly. The crowd hushed instantly. Ethan stood there in oil-stained overalls, overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight. This wasn't his world. His hand still carried grease from the engine he just brought back to life. He'd expected a handshake at best, not a media frenzy or national headlines by sunset. As the cameras eased away, Claire, Logan's elegant executive assistant, stepped forward. In her manicured hands was a sleek, leather-bound folder. She smiled gently and offered it to Ethan. "We've been searching for someone like you," she whispered, leaning in just enough that it didn't feel like a corporate pitch. Ethan took it hesitantly, flipping through the contract without fully absorbing the legal jargon. He closed the folder slowly and shook his head. "I'm no engineer," he murmured, handing it back. "Just a guy who listens to machines." His voice was humble but resolute. Claire paused, surprised by the quiet confidence in his tone. Logan chuckled from behind her, the kind of laugh that said he saw something his board had. Exactly what my entire team forgot how to do, he said. That's why we're here, Ethan, because you remember. 2 days later, Ethan found himself on a private jet for the first time in his life. The plane hummed quietly above the clouds, sleek leather seats and polished wood. Around him, Claire briefed him on Hartwell Motors' current crisis, a major engine recall costing the company millions. Their lead engineers couldn't find the flaw, but Logan believed Ethan could. Ethan barely responded. He just stared out the window, wondering if he truly belonged in this world of executives and polished shoes. When they landed in Detroit, a black car whisked him to Hartwell Motors' towering glass headquarters. Logan introduced him to the board as our new head of innovation. The words caused an audible stir. Suits shifted in their chairs. One director actually laughed. Another muttered, "A mechanic?" Logan raised a brow. "The only mechanic who fixed what you all failed to," he said coolly. "Let him work. Results speak louder than resumes." Then he handed Ethan a badge and turned him loose in the innovation lab. Ethan walked through rows of polished equipment and high-tech stations, his boots echoing off the marble floor. Engineers watched him with suspicion, some even scoffing quietly, but Ethan didn't care. He found the faulty prototype engine, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. For a week, he barely spoke to anyone. He dismantled the unit completely, then rebuilt it piece by piece. His hands moved by instinct, listening to vibrations, feeling the engine's rhythm the way a pianist listens to notes. By the 7th day, the lab was silent as Ethan stepped back from the engine. He pressed the ignition. It roared to life, smooth and flawless, not a single glitch. The engineers stared in stunned silence. One whispered, "He did it." Another muttered, "It's perfect." Logan appeared from the observation window above, arms folded, a proud smile tugging at his mouth. "Gentlemen," he said over the intercom, "that is what happens when you listen first and talk later." From that moment, Ethan's place at Hartwell Motors was no longer questioned. Over the next few months, Ethan transformed the entire research division. He mentored engineers who once doubted him, showing them how to feel machines, not just measure them. He didn't use complex theories or expensive diagnostics. He used touch, sound, and intuition. And slowly, the numbers backed him up. Engine efficiency rose, failures dropped, customers returned, investors regained confidence, and somewhere deep inside the company's soul, something lost had quietly been restored passion. Innovation was no longer a buzzword. It was living inside the lab again. Word spread fast. Auto industry leaders wanted to meet the mysterious Grease, prophet from Texas. Tech expos invited him to speak. At first, Ethan declined every invitation, but Logan urged him. "People don't need another engineer," he said. "They need a reminder that soul matters in machines." So Ethan stepped onto a stage in San Francisco 6 months later, hands still calloused, voice calm. He told a packed auditorium, "I just fixed what everyone else gave up on." The crowd rose to its feet, not for a speech, but for truth. Back in Texas, Ethan's old garage was still there, dusty and humble. But now it had a new sign, Ethan's Lab Innovation That Listens. Hartwell Motors funded the remodel. Young mechanics came to train. Ethan taught them the same way he learned, by listening, not just to engines, but to the people behind them. A single mother whose car always stalled at red lights. A veteran who needed a quiet ride because loud engines triggered his PTSD. Ethan tuned every vehicle with care, saying, "Machines carry our lives. They should know how we live." One evening, after a long day of mentoring interns, Ethan sat alone by a restored vintage Mustang. Claire arrived quietly with a folder. "The board wants you to lead Hartwell's entire engine division," she said. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the stars, hands resting on the hood. Will I still get to build with my hands? He asked. Claire smiled. Yes, but you'll also be building futures. Ethan nodded. Then let's build it right. The offer was signed the next morning, sealing a journey no one could have predicted. In the years that followed, Hartwell Motors became the global gold standard for sustainable intuitive engine design. Ethan spearheaded projects that combined tech with human experience engines that adjusted to emotional cues, vehicles that responded to driving stress with comfort adaptations. The company's revenue tripled, but more importantly, its soul returned. And at the center of it all was a man who never forgot the sound of a broken engine's cry for help, who never forgot how it felt to be underestimated in a world that valued titles more than talent. At one expo in Chicago, a young engineer nervously asked Ethan, "What was your biggest breakthrough?" Ethan thought for a long time, then said, "Trusting what I felt, even when no one else saw it." The audience grew quiet. Cameras captured the moment, but Ethan didn't notice. He was already focused on the next idea. His heart still beat to the rhythm of pistons and gears. And in the far corner of the expo center, Hartwell's once broken engine sat under a spotlight, silent, gleaming, and whole. Logan Hartwell retired 5 years later, leaving the company in Ethan's hands. At the press conference, Logan said, "This isn't just a change in leadership. It's a return to belief." Ethan stood beside him, still wearing boots under his tailored suit. When asked how he'd lead, he replied, "By remembering what most forget, that impossible is just a word spoken by those who stop trying." The room erupted in applause. Across the country, garages erupted with pride. For once, the voice of the working man was not only heard, but honored. Back home in Texas, Ethan never sold his first garage. It stood as a museum now, filled with photos, old tools, and a worn-out sign that read, "We fix what others won't." Tourists came from around the world to see where it all began. Kids sat on oil drums listening to Ethan tell stories of broken bolts, lost causes, and unexpected victories. He ended each tale the same way. Sometimes the hardest thing to fix isn't the machine, it's the way. People stop believing it can be fixed at all. One rainy evening, a little boy approached him with a rusted toy engine. "It doesn't work," the boy said sadly. Ethan smiled, took the toy, and gave it a gentle shake. Something clicked. It purred softly. The boy's eyes lit up. "How'd you do that?" he asked. Ethan knelt down and said, "I listened." The boy grinned. That night, Ethan wrote those words on a plaque. Above the garage door, "Innovation begins with listening." And as he locked up, the wind carried the sound of a distant engine purring, strong, steady, and alive again.